Hey everybody, welcome to the Extraordinary Family Life Podcast. We are your hosts, Greg and Rachel Denning, and today, actually coming to you from Turkey.
That's Turkey.
We are in Turkey, the country Turkey.
Which it's not really Turkey actually, because it is Turkey.
Turkey.
It's not Turkey.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful day after some very stormy days. So we're just sitting here looking out over the balcony. Blue skies and mountains and coastline. Oh, it's beautiful. Anyways, after the episode we did on health and wellness, we got lots of questions, lots of follow-up. So thanks, you guys, for the follow-up questions. Thanks for listening. Thanks for caring. And, man, we got all kinds of stuff to hit today from what about, milk and dairy and
what
lactose
if you're lactose
stuff.
intolerant? What kind of snacks do you eat? What do you buy specifically? What recipes do you use?
Actually, I want to share.
What about lactose? I already said that.
Yeah,
lactose intolerance. What about eating meat sparingly? What about food storage and storing grains?
And what to store, and even I want to throw in a little bit of a little medical kit that everyone should have with medicines and supplements and vitamins. You can have, and I think every family should have with them all the time, and it's been super helpful for us. So I'll share that too. What are some of the things that can go in there? But let's dive in. Let's just hit.
Great. Where would you like to start? Lactose intolerance?
Sure.
Okay. So one of the first questions we got was because we obviously talked a lot about milk, grass-fed milk, and dairy products in the last episode that we did on this, and someone said, well, what if you're lactose intolerant? And first of all, of course, we need to say we're not doctors. We are not prescribing your health plan. We don't know you. We don't know about your health. We are not experts in your body. You are the expert of your body. So we're just simply sharing our experience and what has worked for us. We don't personally have lactose intolerance. We may have a child or two that has some lactose intolerance. And we have one daughter who's adopted who doesn't like milk at all. She just can't stand drinking it. So as far as that goes, with the one son that we have who did have an issue with drinking milk, we noticed over time, in fact it was over a period of years, that he only had the problem when he drank, well at first we thought it was when he drank pasteurized milk, because we noticed the problem went away when we started buying raw milk while living in Europe. So we started getting raw milk from a dairy, and lo and behold, when he used to drink milk, he would get a runny nose all the time. Now he had no problem. That went away. So he was able to drink all the milk he wanted.
And still does.
and still does drink a lot of milk. But later we found out that it wasn't just the raw milk. The raw milk definitely helps, and raw milk is great. But as long as he drinks whole milk, then he's fine. So it was actually the percentages of milk that was causing the problem. So as far as this goes, question...
And even the grass-fed element, too, it makes a big difference.
Well, it does, absolutely. But I'm just trying to break this out in as many layers as possible. So as far as the lactose intolerance, I don't know about your specific lactose intolerance, but it is worth considering all these different layers of it. One of them could be, maybe the problem is with drinking a percentage of milk instead of drinking whole milk, because milk is meant to be drink wholly, right? The whole thing together, because it has all of those things together that are supposed to be together. And when you separate them out, that can start to cause some problems. So that's one idea. And then the other is, like you were saying, maybe you would be fine with grass-fed milk that's whole, as opposed to drinking something that's pasteurized, homogenized, has RBST in it, all of those things. Maybe that's where part of the problem lies. So it's worth experimenting with some of those aspects.
Yep.
And then
finally, again, this entire approach, everything that we've done and do, and our whole health approach, it has to be holistic. It is the whole person, the whole life. And in this philosophy that everything affects everything, really you start actually compounding problems against yourself when something's off in your body. So let's say, for example, you are drinking soda. That's just stuff is just like liquid poison. And the soda is going to have a negative effect on your overall body. And so then the body's not functioning as it could and should. And so then maybe the body reacts negatively to something that otherwise it
some
would
other
have,
toxin.
Yeah, some other, like otherwise it would have been fine, but it's not functioning in a whole healthy way because it's being slowly poisoned by something else.
And so
right?
then it's responding to the milk in a way that it might not otherwise,
exactly.
because of that toxin.
Or some other thing. It's just like, well, it's this happens and this happens. So it has to be, I just can't emphasize this enough, it has to be a holistic approach. And I'm going to be like, when I say holistic, I mean holistic, all of it, including your emotions. Because the studies are finding that if you get angry, it suppresses your immune system for anywhere between 40 minutes to 2 hours after being angry. So your emotions are affecting your health.
And your digestion, of course.
If you're upset, yes, and digestion. So if you're upset, really upset, and maybe chronically upset, you're upset a lot. And you might be like eating well and trying to do all the health things, but you're emotionally just, how do I say this?
A dumpster fire?
You're a dumpster fire, and you're all upset all the time. That's literally affecting digestion and your immune system and all that stuff.
Your ability to absorb nutrients.
Right, all of that's being affected, and so it's a big deal. And the other side is like maybe you don't sleep well. You're staying up late. You're sleeping in. You're tossing and turning, whatever. You don't have good evening habits or morning habits. That for sure is going to affect your overall health. And so things that you might say, well, it's just been like this, or it's been like this, or is this the way it is? Like, well, maybe there's an element there of something else in your holistic approach to you and your well-being is just having this little ripple effect or this cascade effect showing in random ways. Right. That's just one example.
Yeah. So that's a good point, because if you detoxify and you get clean, then you could start from scratch and say, oh, okay, maybe I'm not lactose intolerant. It was something else that was causing that problem. So yeah, that's another way to look at it.
Like corn products are just a waste, and they're toxic. So, and people react to them in crazy ways. So like you remove something like any kind of corn product from your life, and
then
a
maybe
lot of
you
people
can
found
digest
it like,
milk.
wow, like, geez.
Right.
Everything. I feel better emotionally, physically, all this stuff just because I eliminated junk.
Right. So there was one other thing I wanted to mention about the lactose intolerance, and that's some research we did many years ago. So again, I'm not sure how updated this was, but our oldest daughter, who was adopted, she was not breastfed, and we did not want to give her formula, but we had read that giving babies milk when they were, like cow's milk when they were young, could produce lactose intolerance. And we had read something about giving them goat's milk instead because it had a different protein in there that didn't have the same reaction or cause. I don't know all the details, but I'm just saying, I want to throw that out there. That's another thing. Like you could look into goat's milk or other types. In Mongolia, they drink mare's milk, or there's camel's milk. That's a little extreme, but look at other types of milk as well. Because they were asking, well, what about a substitute? And honestly, like I can't recommend anything else besides real milk. I'm not going to recommend almond milk or soy milk or oat milk, all of those things, because they're just not the same. Now, maybe coconut milk might be a good
that's
option.
fantastic.
It's, it's good and it's whole. But if you are truly if you do all those things and you experiment and you're still truly lactose intolerant, well, I guess you just don't drink milk. You cut that out.
And I feel very strongly about the whole soy milk, almond milk, oat milk. That's just junk.
It is not good for you.
Yeah.
In fact, I would even say it's toxic for you. It's actually damaging for you, as opposed to provide, like any health benefits it might provide, any nutrition it might provide at all, is so negligible that the toxic effects it's having don't make it worth it. So just get rid of that. Now, the same person did say they can handle eating cheeses and yogurts, and so they want to know specifically, where do we find them? Where do you get them? And what I want to say here applies to everything, I think, because ultimately, we talked about it before, like there's levels here, and you have to try to aim for the highest level possible, but if it's not available, you have to then go for the next option. So it's not one or the other. It's not grass-fed or nothing, right? It's levels. Like what's the next best option? So obviously, if we're looking for milk or not, if we're looking for cheeses or yogurts, well, yeah, we want to try and find grass-fed cheeses and yogurts. But that's hard to find. Sometimes we do randomly find them.
Especially hard to find.
Yeah, they're especially hard to find. Especially if, I've looked for grass-fed sour cream and grass-fed cream cheese. Like, it's hard to find that. So then the next best option, of course, is to just get organic.
Yep.
Go for that. Or sometimes to make your own. There has been time periods when we've made our own. We made our own yogurt. We made our own mozzarella. We've made our own whatever, fill in the blank. So that's another option too, which is obviously more time consuming. But we look for the best, and if you can't find it, then we go for the next level below that. But then even if the organic's not available, like my opinion, my point of view at this point in my life, I will still buy cheese, milk, meat that's not organic as opposed to eating a salad or buying kale, right? For me, there's still more nutritional value that's there, as far as density of nutrition, as opposed to eating a salad with a seed oil salad dressing on top of it. Like, that doesn't even compare anymore. And I used to be the complete opposite. I'd be like, oh, meat's not available? Great, I'll get a salad with a salad dressing. Now I know that that's, it's not giving me much nutrition, because lettuce and salad and spinach and kale just don't have that much nutrition per bite. And if you were going to eat it, I've said this before, you should cook it and put a bunch of butter on it. And then too, if you're putting the salad dressing on it, the salad dressing is basically sugar and seed oil, which is toxic. So it's just a toxic mess. That's what a salad is. It's a toxic mess. So if I don't have, like right here, we're in Turkey, we went shopping. I'm pretty sure nothing we bought at the store was organic, but we bought it anyways because we'd rather eat the meat and milk and cheese than not.
And what's interesting, again, this would take massive amounts of research, and as often as we move and from country to country to country, this is so challenging. But we do know that the practices in different countries vary drastically.
Yes.
And some of just a regular old cow in some other country is going to be far, far more healthier than some cow on a feedlot that's just being stacked with drugs and steroids and grains and all kinds of garbage.
Which, we know for sure in Europe that's generally the case, because there's a lot of the stuff they give to cows and everything else in our food is not even allowed it's FDA approved in the United States, but it's considered cancer causing in Europe, and it's not even allowed. Yeah. So that's one consolation we have while traveling is assuming that the standards are very different.
This blows my mind. It blows my mind. Like the whole European Union says, no, these chemicals are like super toxic. We know they're dangerous for health. They are forbidden on our continent.
Yes.
And yet that's like
FDA approved
normal,
in the United States.
But like not only is it okay, it's like the majority of practices it's being used like in a massive amount.
Yeah,
it's insane to me. This is crazy.
That's a whole nother topic though. Okay. Next question is asking about specifically, how do you find the stuff, which we kind of already talked about, and then specifically what kind of snacks and what kind of recipes.
But let's lean into finding stuff a little bit more.
Okay.
So obviously there's tons of resources online now. Way more resources than ever before.
Yes, if you're in the United States especially. I mean, this is a plus, In the United States, people are starting to become aware of this. They're realizing what we just mentioned about FDA and all this. And so there's farmers and there's organizations that are trying to change this. So when we lived in the United States, I would order a lot of meat online. And there's Butcher Box is one of them. Of course, I can't think of the others at the moment.
But there's going to be a bunch.
Things like that.
And you're going to be able to find like whatever you can get, organic fruits or bars, even like jerky. I mean, what we're saying is you have a resource now where they can ship, and shipping's getting really affordable and really common, and you're going to be able to find so many things. Even if you don't live in a place where it's not readily available, you're going to be able to find so much online.
Well, yeah, even on Amazon I would, and you have to do your research, you have to look, but I would find a lot of things on Amazon that would get, like you'd mentioned, specific grass-fed jerky or grass-fed.
The meat sticks we would get.
We would buy grass-fed jerky at Costco. They would have it there, and we would get grass-fed meat sticks. So this is a good, just because I thought of it, because I had a cousin once, and she's like, "Well, I don't buy that grass-fed jerky at Costco because it has some sugar in it." And I remember thinking that at one point. But then I realized that the nutritional value I'm getting from eating jerky as a snack instead of eating, say, like goldfish, right? I don't want the sugar, so I'm going to eat something else. It's worth it in the end.
Or
I think
I'm going to be vegan, so I'm going to do spoonfuls of Nutella instead as a snack.
Oh, okay. But like if you're trying to cut out the sugar, I get that. But you're always going to have to be making compromises. And so in my mind, I've learned to weigh that a little. So if I'm getting some grass-fed jerky, especially if it's going to be a snack for my family, to me it's worth a little bit of sugar they put in it so that my kids are eating jerky that's nutritious and filling and, nourishing their bodies, as opposed to whatever, fill in the blank with some other snack, kale chips, right?
I think what you're...
There's no sugar, but...
What you're trying to lean into there is like, it's not realistic or sustainable to seek perfection.
Right.
We just got to seek high percentages. If we can get 80%, 90% of the time eating quality food that's 80 to 90% quality, that's sustainable.
Right.
Now, you don't feel like you're going crazy and you only eat 3 things that you can only find in 3 places.
Yes. No, that's so
And you don't happen to live near them.
Exactly. You have to make these compromises, but you have to learn how to make the compromises that are working in your favor as opposed to working against you. And to not, and this is the problem that we see a lot of people make, to not use that way of thinking as an excuse.
I was just going to go there. Because some of you will hear that and be like, sweet!
I'm getting the Oreos!
Yes!
Right? It's about making
wise
compromises.
I'm doing 80 or 90%. I'm going to sit down and binge on this whole package of garbage. It's like, no. We would never do that.
Yes.
We haven't done that in over 2 decades of being married, and we won't do it. We're just not going there. So don't use it as an excuse of like, well, most of the time we're good, so you just slam some kind of junk or garbage. Don't go there.
That being said, I'm going to expound on this a little more, because they said, what's it like when you're eating when you're traveling versus when you're at home? And to be honest, when we're traveling, obviously our diet is less ideal than when we're at home, because we have more control of it. I find the sources, they get delivered to my house, all of these things. Like, I know exactly where to find everything I want and need. Where when we're out traveling, very often, if the only thing, like the other day we were at the airport, we had, the breakfast at the hotel was pitiful.
How shall we say, less than edible.
Less than desirable. And so we hadn't eaten anything. We got to the airport. All of these things had gone wrong, including a passport being left at the hotel that had to be brought over. And then we got, the baggage didn't get dropped off in time. And then we got in the wrong security line and all these things. And so we kept saying, we'll get something to eat when we get in through security. Well, when we got through security at this airport in Istanbul, there was nothing to eat. There was no restaurants or anything like we thought. And so the only option was some, let's call them gas station sandwiches. And that's what we ate. That's not something we would ever choose any other time, but because it was the only option, we ate that. Along those lines, back to, making exceptions, because we also believe in embracing the culture. Because one of the things we do like to do is, despite our high standards for our own personal diet, we also don't do it in a way that becomes rude to other people or cultures. Right? So if we're at someone's house and they offer us something, we're not going to be like, no, we don't eat that.
Well,
I'm sorry.
But that's
within limitations.
We still have limitations where there's just certain things I will never put in my body, and then I'll very tactfully get out of it.
Right, but I'm saying
because I don't want that to be like, well, if they offer it, I gotta accept it, and you're like, nah, that totally violates your principles.
But let me explain. I'm saying like we would never be like, is that grass-fed beef?
Yeah.
Because I'm not eating it unless it is. That's the type of thing I'm talking about. It's not like we're going to be like, oh yeah, we'll have your Oreos.
Right.
Because, and then what I'm getting at is we also allowed our children to have some Turkish delight, right? We're in Turkey. We got Turkish delight. But I also told them after we had it, because they're like, oh, can we get some more? I'm like, this was a couple days later. I'm like, no, we're not going to be buying Turkish delight every single day just because we're in Turkey. We let you try it. It's not healthy, right? It's basically sugar. So we tried it. The cultural experience, it's over. It's done. Like, we're not going to buy it every time we go to the store now because we allowed that one exception. Right. That's what I'm talking about. So you have to. And
they ask for it every time we go to the store here.
And we say no because I explain, we let you try it, but we're not going to get Turkish delight every time because it's not good for us. So we have to understand this about ourselves and not feel like we're stuck in one thing or the other. It's yes or no. It's this or that. It's no sugar or this. Like, we have to learn to make these compromises, but in a wise way that's flexible and also in the long run sustainable. Right. And supporting our long-term health.
Right. So if you're shooting for 90%, which is really great, that doesn't mean the 10% is just anything. It's still, I don't even know how to articulate this. That 10% of wiggle room is still has 90%.
Still better than.
Yeah, it's still 90% better than all the rest of the crap.
Right.
So you have a wiggle room, but it's not anything goes 10%.
Yeah.
It's still on that scale we talked about last time where you're still trying to be really healthy.
Okay. So
we were just getting into like sourcing. Yeah,
we're like, where were we?
So, but you're going to find stores all over the place.
Definitely.
Look around, pay attention.
I would say definitely, because one of the concerns is obviously cost. It's going to cost more. And then things like going to a local farmer. I suggest getting into that. If you have a local farmer that grows or raises
all day long
good food, go there, get it. And yes, it can cost more, but I think it's worth it.
Or it might cost less. I mean, if you got to take an hour drive out of town and buy half a beef, and you have to go buy
you can buy it in bulk,
yeah, you have to go buy a deep freeze and go out, find some, just drive an hour in any direction and find a farmer and be like, hey, can I just get one of these right off the pasture here?
It's supporting local community. It's supporting real food the way we want it done. So we're voting with our dollars saying this is what we want. We want healthier food in the world. And there's a lot of, I've seen farms nowadays that will, they have some sort of program where they can deliver it to your house even. They, you buy half a cow. Yep. You own part of a cow so you can get raw milk. There's a lot of different options. So it does require you doing some research, but it is possible. It is a reality. And
it is going to be more expensive. You guys have noticed that. Especially if you're trying to do anything grass-fed, it's more expensive. And Rachel and I were talking about this the other day, like, yeah, if you think it's expensive to eat healthy, you should try being sick.
Right,
like,
exactly.
That's expensive.
Well, this is a very good point that a lot of people don't recognize, because this is a whole nother podcast we might do. We don't have any health insurance. We have not had any health insurance for 15 years or more. But where we spend our money instead is in our food. So we literally pay more for food, but in the end, I think we pay a lot less than we otherwise would in healthcare, because we rarely go to the doctor. We rarely have any health problems or issues. I mean, sometimes it's a cold or something like that. But overall, we're extremely healthy, and I definitely attribute that to our diet. So we're investing.
And the holistic thing I was talking about before.
Exactly.
Like our entire lives are healthy.
Right. And so that's where we're spending our money instead of, I've heard of people spending $1,000, $3,000 a month just on health insurance. And that's insane. We spend maybe $3,000 a month on our food. I'm trying to think now. I'm like,
on a
okay,
cheap
wait a
month.
second. All right, so maybe we spend about $3,000 on a month on our food, or a little more. But to me, it's totally worth it because we're getting the nutritional and health value, and we're not having to spend it in healthcare. Because we definitely don't spend anywhere close to that on healthcare.
No, not at all. And I think did we mention this in another podcast? Like when we're traveling out and abroad, because people ask a lot, and I mean, it's going to come up. So a little tangent here on healthcare. Like there's great hospitals. There's great public and private hospitals all over the world. Rachel had to have 2 minor surgeries while we were in Europe, and
while traveling,
assumed it was going to be like steep. We're like, oh, this is gonna.
Well, we knew it would be cheaper than the States,
the bank,
which they had quoted me would be, respectively, one surgery was $2,300 and the other was $2,100, and we figured it's going to be less than that, but we didn't know how much. So the one surgery I had was less than $400, yeah. And the other one was $100.
It was $100. and these are highly educated, highly skilled. Like we were in nice towns or cities, went to these doctors,
high-end doctors,
and it was like, wow, okay, this is amazing. So
that's one reason we save a lot of healthcare, is because it's a lot cheaper outside of the U.S.
It's incredible.
Okay,
so you could literally take a trip to Poland, for example. Or Austria. We had one in Poland, one in Austria, and they're both so much cheaper. You could include a trip and get some work done.
It's true.
Dental or medical. It was incredible.
But
okay,
point
let's
being,
keep going.
If you are concerned about the cost of eating better, you honestly need to weigh it against the current cost you're spending on healthcare, on all of the sicknesses and illnesses and diseases your family is dealing with. Because I'm telling you, and this is research, not just our own personal experience. This is backed up. If you get clean and you eat healthy, you're reducing your sickness, health, illnesses, diseases by drastically. You're drastically reducing the likelihood of dealing with those
Again,
things.
Though, we're not making this recommendation for you or your family. This is just
we're not
how
doctors.
we do things. Nor are we insurance, whatever. Like, you got to do your thing.
We're not anything legal, right? We're just sharing our experience and our research. Okay, so, but, I've been able to find grass-fed meat at most major grocery stores, including Walmart, and ironically, Costco doesn't have it.
You can get massive amounts of grass-fed meat at Walmart.
Right, but I've got tons of my grass-fed roasts and steaks from Walmart.
And ground beef.
Right, so I would get all of that. But the other smaller grocery stores and stuff, where we were living in Georgia, it was Kroger and it was, Publix, things like that. They definitely have that in their sections. Yep. They're trying to meet the demands of the current consumer, and this is a thing. So you just kind of have to look for it.
And we'll just throw this out there, because people are asking. There's a lot of deception, and they're going to throw all kinds of labels on there that aren't accurate. So look at the ingredients. Look at the things. Try to get as accurate as possible. It's sad to me that people will deceive. They'll throw at Costco, like, there's all these keto. Everything says keto on it, and then you look at it, and it's like sugar is the first ingredient. You're like, that's
not exactly, because keto is not sugar, but they'll put things in there
that
are more toxic.
No, that's what I'm saying. So, like,
oh, you've seen that?
Yes,
oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So keto, the whole idea of keto is no sugar. So they're putting, like, it's supposed to be erythritol or monk fruit or something that doesn't spike it. And I'm like, oh, keto, whatever. And I look at it, I'm like, it's sugar, like straight up sugar. I'm like, that is just outright lie. They put keto on it, counting that people will go, oh, I want keto, and they'll grab it without looking at the ingredients.
Well, so yeah, because the question is, how do you know you're not just being fed lies on the packaging? Well, yeah, sometimes you are. And so this comes back to the approach we've taken for over almost two decades, and that's reading the ingredients. Yeah. So it takes a little more time. You do have to look at it and say, oh, it says keto, but what does it actually have in the ingredients? And you need to know what you're looking at and what you're reading.
We're actually getting good now. At least I am. I can decipher
sugar in many languages.
Yes, exactly.
I know what it looks like in Turkish now. Exactly.
Like, we've done so many languages in the last few weeks of looking at ingredients, and I can you just start to decipher.
Exactly.
It's pretty awesome.
So, and then the question is, well, what about when you're traveling? When we're traveling, I think when we're traveling, it's basically that approach. We're not going to find perfection. We are reading the ingredients for sure. And then we're getting the stuff that has more of what we want, less of what we don't want. But then it still comes down to the basics for us. We're still buying meat, mostly beef. And then we're also buying eggs. We buy eggs. We eat so many eggs, it's crazy.
And
we eat a lot of eggs.
We're doing organic or free range.
Yeah. And then we'll even test them. Like this time in Turkey, there was 4 different brands of organic. And we're like, okay, I want to see what these look like. So we bought one of each. And then we brought them home. And we cracked them all into a pan. And the way you can tell if it's a really good, healthy egg is that the yolk is very dark, almost orange. If it's light or like yellow, no good. So we looked at them all in the pan, and we're like, okay, that one right there, that's the best one. So now that's the brand we're going to buy while we're here in Turkey because it's got the darker yolks.
Winner chicken dinner right there.
We buy cheeses, of course, milk, butter, yogurt. That's really like the staple of our diet.
Big one with yogurt that I see all the time is most yogurts have stupid amounts of sugar.
So we always buy unsweetened.
And
yogurt.
then you even get the natural ones. So this is where it's also deceptive. You'll have a whole row of natural yogurts.
But it's natural with sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweetened.
So it's rare. I think there'll be 1 or 2 in the whole yogurt section that actually doesn't have sugar in it.
So we always buy the one without the sugar, and then we sweeten it ourselves with real honey.
Yep, raw honey, preferably. Honey we've been able to find all over the world. That's a good one.
That's true. Honey is everywhere. So that's another thing. We eat a lot of honey. Should I go over a list of more of the things we eat right now?
Sure.
Maple syrup, which we don't always find.
Maple syrup.
Pure maple syrup, which we don't always find everywhere.
And it does not exist in Turkey.
Right. We could not find it here in Turkey. They had something that was maple flavor, but that's confusing. Maple flavor is not the same as pure maple syrup.
And so they'll even say that. It'll say maple syrup or whatever. It's like only get the pure stuff.
Right. Whipped cream. We eat a lot of whipped cream. We love to put whipped cream in.
You say a lot. It's here and there with certain things.
I eat whipped cream every time I can because I loved whipped cream. I put cream in my
And okay, let's clarify.
tea.
Because some of you will go and be like, oh, Rachel eats whipped cream, and so you'll buy the canister with the spray, and you're like, psh,
right.
Yeah, and you're like, open up your mouth and filling your mouth full of whipped cream. That stuff is predominantly sugar.
We buy whipping cream, cream for whipping, and then we make our own whipped cream that's usually unsweetened.
Yep. In a blender.
And then we'll put that on German pancakes. We make German pancakes. That's primarily eggs. It does have flour in it and milk, but it's milk. Again, percentages. It's mostly eggs, milk with flour. That's fine in our book.
And we keep the flour to a minimum, and we add way more eggs and milk.
And then we do a lot of eggs in it, and then we do whipped cream on it. We also do crepes with whipped cream. I put, I guess not the whipped cream, I just put the cream into my honey. So every morning, one of the very first things I do is I make myself a cup of tea. It's generally mint tea or a decaffeinated chai tea or
chamomile.
Sometimes it doesn't even have a tea bag. It will be just honey, butter, and milk with hot water. And that's what I drink every morning. So I don't even usually eat breakfast until 10 or 11 because I have tea in the morning and that sustains me until later. But I'll put in, say, a tablespoon of butter. I fill it half full with hot water. I put my tea bag in. I let it steep. I add a small spoonful of honey, and then I fill the rest up with milk, and I'm good to go. That's something I drink every day. One of Greg's favorite snacks is frozen blueberries with milk. Now, when we lived in Georgia, in the United States, at Walmart, they had wild
you have to get the wild
blueberries
ones.
at Walmart that were naturally sweet, and so we didn't add any sweetener to that, and he would just put milk or half and half on them. But we have had some that are bitter, so you could mix in some honey to your...
It's every once in a while. We were in some country, and I'm like, yes, blueberries again. And man, they were bad. It was so bitter. I'm like, okay, this one needs some honey.
Yes. We also eat a lot of dark chocolate, but of course we're getting generally around 70 to 80%. You'll sometimes go 90%. And we're looking for sugar is at least the second or third ingredient. And if it's organic, better. If it's another,
Yep.
cane sugar, even better. We'll do dried fruit, although I like to be really careful with this because dried fruit can be like candy in that it can cause the same damage to your teeth. So I don't let my kids just have unlimited access to dry fruit because they'll eat it nonstop and then get cavities.
Well, and it really gets stuck in their teeth, and so you have those sugars and the food in there stuck in
dried fruit is literally like a treat or a snack or a candy for us.
Just keep it to a minimum.
But one thing we love to do is we put butter inside of our dates. So we eat dates filled with butter, and that's really good because it's the sugar and the fats.
Man, in Turkey we just found the like organic dark apricots, the dried apricots.
The unsulfured apricots.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so if you are
the
getting
orange
dried
ones
fruit,
are chemicalized.
Right. If you're getting dried fruit, you want to try and get things that are unsulfured, which means they're not going to be the bright orange apricots. They're going to look darker, and maybe they look more disgusting, but they're actually better because they have fewer chemicals. Same with like dried mango and stuff.
Right. It should look like it's
a piece of dried
dried out fruit. You're like, ugh. You want it to look like that. I think one of the biggest problems is like we want our food to look so good, the fruit to look like it didn't grow in nature, and so then they're happy to oblige that and create these false realities.
Right.
With chemicals and food coloring and waxes and whatever else.
Another thing I don't do a lot, but I want to do more of because I love the idea of it, is cooking your fruit in butter. So you can cook your apples or cook like a compote almost. You know, it's cooked up apples or cooked up pears, and you have it with butter or cinnamon. That's a good thing. We've also made baked pears. This is one of our favorites that we make when we're at home. You just cut the pears in half, put them face down in the pan, cover it with butter and cream and cinnamon,
and bake it.
And bake it. It's amazing. Charcuterie boards. Charcuterie boards are an amazing snack because you can throw it out there, and it doesn't have to actually be a board. You can just throw it out on the counter and.
But go ahead and get a board.
Boards are fun
awesome.
anyways, right? And you have all kinds of meats, and you can get so creative with this because if you start looking, there's a lot of different kinds of meats. Now you don't want the sandwich meat. That's
garbage.
It's filled with nitrates. It's not good. The better meats are the traditional meats that are smoked and cured.
And try to avoid the ones that have nitrate added as an ingredient.
Right, but you can get salamis and prosciuttos and all of that, and then cheeses. There's huge variety of cheeses, mozzarellas and Goudas and Havarti and like all kinds of different types of cheeses.
And then berries on there too.
And then you put some berries on there, and you put some olives on there. There's so many
pickles.
different types of olives and lots of different types of pickles, and so you just get all of these different things and you throw them out there and you just snack from it.
Yep. And if you had that out regularly, that's good.
And then you could, if you wanted, you could add cucumbers on there, other fruits. So there's a lot of grapes. There's a lot of variety that you can do with the charcuterie board, and that gets really creative and fun.
Yeah. What was so cute the other day is Rachel was reading one of the questions. She's like, someone wanted to know what snacks we eat. And our little 6-year-old was there standing by. And you never know when the kids are paying attention listening. It was so adorable. She's like, we eat mandarins and grapes and bananas and strawberries and blueberries and apples and oranges. And she just, it was so cute. She named out all these things. And I was like, that was adorable. She's 6. And she can just pop them off like this, the things we snack on.
That's what we eat. So, yeah, we definitely have a lot of fruit available for snacks. And berries. We love berries. Strawberries. We just bought 2 cases of strawberries here in Turkey. Blueberries, blackberries. All of that is just so good and good for you. Then someone, they were asking about recipes. Well, what recipes do you make? And actually I have a different, Instagram channel or feed that's just my name. It's rachel.e.denning, and at some point I'm planning on doing recipes.
Don't hold your breath for this one.
Well, nah, it's my plan. When we go to Portugal, that's what I want to do. So if you want to see that from me, go there to rachel.e.denning and leave a comment on one, because I have already made a few. I showed making Swedish meatballs. I showed a kefir smoothie. That's another thing. We buy unsweetened kefir, and then I make smoothies with them, with just fruit, frozen fruit, and bananas for sweetening.
Eggnog
Eggnog is another. Oh, yes, that's a great thing. I'll talk about the eggnog in a second. So I have a few reels on there that I made a charcuterie board for the 4th of July that's on that channel. So go leave a comment on one of those saying, yeah, I want to see more reels of recipes to make. And that's something I want to start doing, because people are asking, what do you make? What do you make at home? One of the things, like you said, is eggnog. So in the morning for breakfast, I'll make eggnog or chocolate milk, where it's basically the grass-fed milk. And then I'll actually make both, because some of my kids like the eggnog.
Again,
and some
people
like
are going to be like, oh, they have chocolate milk, and
Yeah.
you're going to go buy this
Right.
chocolate syrup
No,
and
it's
squirt
not
it
that.
in there. It's like, it's not that garbage.
That's not what it is. So the eggnog recipe is basically the grass-fed milk, and then I put in a lot of eggs, raw eggs, because they're good, the pasture-raised eggs. That's what makes it eggnog, right? And I put it into the chocolate milk too. And then I add the cinnamon, vanilla, mix it up, and then I pour that out I sweeten it with honey or maple syrup. And I pour that out for the kids that want the eggnog. Then I add the cacao powder, unsweetened cacao powder, to the mix, and then that makes the chocolate milk. And so I can do both. My kids love that, and it's nourishing because it has a lot of eggs in it, a lot of protein, so it's great. Something else,
One thing you mentioned, that you would make a roast almost every day.
Right,
And we're
I was
not
gonna say
traveling,
that.
and we have a Instapot.
I love using my Instapot, and I would literally make a roast almost every single day. So I would buy the grass-fed roast from Walmart, and in the morning I just throw in the roast, and then I there's endless options of things you can do with a roast. You just eat it plain, right? Which, if we're trying to be quick, that's what we do. We just eat the plain roast.
It's so good.
Or I make enchiladas with it, or we make sandwiches with it. Someone's asking, do you eat bread? Well, yeah, we'll eat bread and we'll eat tortillas, but for us,
not very much, though.
Well, what I want to explain is I try to make it a accompaniment to something. It's not the main thing. It's not like we're eating the bread or we're eating this. It's meant to go with something else, where the main part of the meal is the meat, and you've got something, the tortilla with it or something.
And again, we have to keep reiterating this so that you don't go like, oh, bread's good, and then you just go buy whatever bread, because it's not. Not all bread is created equal. So always look at the ingredients. Try to buy fresh.
I never
baked
buy the sliced bread,
like just
in a
regular old
package.
sandwich bread.
I always buy the fresh bakery bread. So I go to the bakery section of the grocery store and I get bread there. Sourdough is great. Sourdough is a great option. In fact, when I was in the States, I had a company called Wild Grain that would deliver sourdough bread to our house.
That was good.
That was awesome.
Yep.
But
And again, I personally eat very little bread.
Right. And if I eat bread, it's an excuse for eating something else, like butter or mascarpone or cream cheese. Like bread's not the reason for the bread.
Same with rice. If we have rice, it's like, for me, it'll be a tiny bit of rice
with the roast.
With the roast, yeah,
Right.
something like that.
Exactly. So I'll do a roast almost every single day. If we don't do a roast, then we generally do a steak. Yeah. So we're pretty much eating red meat at least one major meal per day. And then in the other meal, like breakfast, it's basically eggs. It's either eggs in eggnog or chocolate milk, or it's scrambled eggs, or it's a frittata, or fill in the blank. So when you're saying, well, what do I eat? The question is simple. Then it just remains the creativity of what to do with it. Because you can eat eggs.
Many examples online now.
And you can eat eggs every single day, but you just have to get creative in eating them different ways so it doesn't feel boring. You can eat steak or roast every single day, and if you get creative, it doesn't feel boring because it's new. One of the things I actually love is using French recipes and French cookbooks, because French food is really traditional food. It's just normal food. It's roast, it's eggs, it's fruit.
It's really farm food.
Yeah, it's farm food, but presented in so many varying
options.
So many varying options that
are amazing.
Incredible. Right. So get a French cookbook or something and start looking. In fact, we've done that.
We have like 4 or 5 of them.
Julia Child's Art of French Cooking, and I reference that a lot for coming up with a new recipe to eat the same thing in a different way. Okay, that's a lot. This is like dump here of information, but these are the questions that we're being asked, so we're trying to respond to them as fully as possible.
There's a comment we get often of like, hey, I want to get my spouse on board, or how do I get my kids on board? And there was another one came here like another comment came through. It was like, I sure hope I can get my spouse on board. And I get that it's challenging, and some people will be very stuck in their ways, and they may not care.
They love their Oreo.
Yeah, they just love it the way it is. They stop every day at the gas station and get a huge thing of soda. But just tactfully, with diplomacy, just keep teaching the effects. When we really have to get to a point where we deeply understand what it is and what it does. And for the most part, that will work. If you understand that soda is just liquid poisoning and it's just really, really garbage for your health, then that starts to help. But then some people will be like, well, yeah, I know it's bad for me and I still consume it anyways. Now, to me, I don't get that. I don't understand that. But that gets to another fundamental level of you have to start attaching it to a deeper, meaningful why of like, well, do you want to live a long, high-quality life? Do you want to be there for your kids and your grandkids and your great-grandkids? Do you want to enjoy longevity and an active life? You want to be able to really live. And I know people personally and well who life just kind of sucks. So they actually really don't care. They don't want to live long and healthy and well. They just want to put an end to it. And so they'll do that. So again, that's why this is holistic and matters so much. Like when you genuinely love life and you love your body, because your body is your vehicle for life, then you want to take better care of it. And it affects everything from the actual capacity of your brain, like how intelligent you can be and how thoughtful and clear decision making, to sex and intimacy and libido, to emotions. Yeah, big time with emotions. Like a lot of what you're feeling emotionally is very food driven, to energy and vitality, to be awake, energized, and alive for marriage and parenting. I mean, there's so much. So find the reason, the meaning, your why, and then understand what it does and how it's affecting you, and then it's easier to make these better decisions.
Well, and I would say in that holistic approach, in some ways and in some cases, one, people don't eat healthy. This could be your spouse or children, because they don't understand fully what's happening. I know that's where I was, especially when I was a teen and a young adult. I didn't know, never thought about it. So they're ignorant. Two, once you become cognizant and you still don't, it may just be a lack of knowing how to. Like, I don't know how to choose something different. I don't know how to prepare something different. But once you can,
or you have an idea that the alternative is like nasty, or blah, like, wait, I have to eat tofu, like I'm out.
Right, exactly. But once you overcome those, then three, the other option might be you just don't care. And for some, this might be something to look into, because if your spouse has heard it before and knows and gets it but still doesn't want to, maybe there's something else going on there. Maybe they don't care because maybe there's some deeper underlying issue that needs to be addressed and resolved that would make them want to care about living a longer and healthier life. Yeah.
Like you nagging less.
Well, and the other thing I thought of too is, especially if you are, and this isn't always the case, but if you are a primary manager of the family shopping and meal preparation, well, you have a lot of control there. You actually are the one making the buying decision. Maybe not all of them. Maybe they still stop at the store and get their own stuff, okay? But if you're buying most of the groceries, start buying better groceries and start preparing better meals.
Yes.
And especially if they're delicious.
Yes.
They might complain a little bit at first because they're used to the Cocoa Krispies or something, right? But as long, that's why I do things like the chocolate milk and the eggnog, because it's something they want but still good for them. And so it makes, and I'm like, eat your frittata. Maybe you don't want the frittata. Eat it and you get your chocolate milk too, right? So you have more control and power over that than you realize. if you put in the effort. I also know that if I'm not willing to put in the effort to shop well and cook well, and that doesn't mean I'm making 3 meals a day, that's not what that means, that the whole family eats better.
Yep.
But if I get lazy about that and I'm like, I don't want to do that, well, then we all suffer as a result, myself included. And in the long run, that produces this fatalism of like, well, we don't have any control, it's too much effort, we'll just eat whatever, and then we'll get sick and die. Right? So you have to care about it enough that you're willing to put forth the effort to make the changes.
So and this came up with a client. I may have mentioned this before, where a client was like, he's like, I keep eating candy bars. I'm like, what? Where are you getting candy bars? He's like, from my office desk. I'm like, who put candy bars in your office desk? He's like, well, I get hungry at work and I'm busy, so I just need to grab some. I'm like, well, why did you put candy bars in there instead of healthy things? And so we cleaned out his whole office desk and filled it. I've done this with multiple clients. Like, fill your desk with good things. And I have clients that are super busy. They're out there on knocking doors, they're salesmen, whatever, coaching clients. And I'm like, and they're like, it's so hard to eat. I'm like, yeah, but with a little bit of preparation and planning, it's worth it. Invest in a cooler that plugs into your car and keep healthy meals cool, or invest in one of these heating lunch boxes that heats up your lunch. So when you jump in and you're driving to your next appointment, you actually can eat a steak or whatever it is you want to get, right? You can do these things and provide these different snacks. We had somebody write in and say, well, my son takes goldfish to basketball practice because he wants calories. So he gets more
calories.
And
a calorie is not a calorie, people.
Yeah. And the response was, well, why not send an orange or an apple? And yeah, the orange or the apple is better than the goldfish, obviously, but it's not nutrient dense.
Well, and
it doesn't have the sustaining power that a teenage boy needs.
To a teenage boy,
exerting.
They might want an apple, but it's not going to sustain them. So what he's really looking for, I think, is more density and more. I would also say he's probably craving fats and salts, which is why he goes for that.
Yep.
So he needs something to replace that, like some jerky or a steak, or you got to get creative in different snacks you can have that have more dense nutrition. You've made different power bars that are made from meat, and I'm trying to think now off the top of my head if I had a son at basketball, but like I guess the jerky is the first one that comes to mind. Like I'd be getting that jerky and giving him those types of options of things to take, because if you're like, hey son, you should take an apple instead, he's gonna be like, what am I gonna do with this apple?
It's not gonna sustain him. It's not gonna be enough.
Okay, I think that answered most of the questions. There was another one about grains versus meat and eating meat sparingly.
I liked what you said about storing. Share what you said with me before about storing, because grains, they last for 20 years.
Someone was asking about food storage. Like if you're trying to store food, how do you store meats and milk and all of that? And we've thought about that ourselves. So grains, they're certainly something that are valuable to store, because if push comes to shove, worst case scenario, like I've told Greg, like if it's between not eating and eating grains, I'm going to eat grains.
Me too.
I'm not going to die.
Load them up.
Right? So if you're in a survival type situation, great. Have some grains for food storage. Have legumes, whatever else. Like,
well, and
store
obviously
that stuff.
soak them, like was mentioned.
Okay, well
it makes them better, right? Soaking them overnight makes them better. But yeah, that's survival food.
Right. So that's another thing, because the question also included talking about soaking grains, which makes them more, I think the word they used was bioavailable. So that is true. And in fact, in the Nourishing Traditions, there's a book called Nourishing Traditions by Sally Fallon, I think. And then also I've read in the Dental Diet, if you're going to eat grains, you should be soaking them or fermenting them, because it actually gets rid of the phytic acid. That's why sourdough bread is better than normal bread. Sourdough pancakes especially, or also, it gets rid of the phytic acid, and it does make it more absorbable by your body. So soaking is a great idea if you're eating grains. Now, that being said, if you're looking for pure nutritional value, you're going to get more from a steak than you are from some grains. And then the other part of the question was like, well, grains are more abundant on the earth and cows are less abundant. Well, that depends. I mean, the only reason grains are more abundant on the earth nowadays is because of monoculture and fertilizer, which is extremely damaging to the planet.
And to the actual food.
And to the food itself. So, you know,
it's more
human
available.
beings used to hunt animals and eat primarily animals. That's what sustained us. Now, at some point, we started becoming farmers. We started growing grains because it became more predictable and sustainable. Instead of chasing animals around and trying to find where the herd moved, you could stay in one place, you could build a house, you could plant your wheat, and you would have food to last all year, well, through the winter, you know. So it became a more predictable structure, but that doesn't mean that's how we started out, and it doesn't mean that that's naturally more abundant than the other course. Does that make sense?
It just made me realize I want to have a small elk farm. I'm gonna raise some beef, obviously, and
some bison.
And some bison, yes, I'm getting the vision right now. Bison, some. I want a big bull. I've always wanted a big bull. I'm gonna have some cattle. I'm gonna have some bison. I'm gonna have some elk. Yep, that's it. Got it. It's gonna be amazing.
This has been a random thought by Craig.
Okay, should we hit the medical stuff at the end here?
Yes, you would. Yes, you want to hit your medical stuff.
I just want to share this real quick. So, I'll just do it quickly. I'll just do it really quickly. These are just some things I think everyone should have readily available, because you never know when some little bug, something comes around that you're going to need something. It's better to just have it handy, and as part of your storage, I would have this. So some acetaminophen, which is basically like Tylenol, ibuprofen. This is over-the-counter stuff. Just having some of these things. Get an over-the-counter allergy. Get an over-the-counter anti-diarrhea. Get some. For our kids, our little kids, the children's chewable acetaminophen.
This is stuff really we travel with.
Yeah, we travel with this in a kit. We have a small kit. We have it divided into this. We carry activated charcoal. That stuff is awesome for any gut issues. We love garlic capsules and turmeric capsules. High quality vitamins D, C, and A. And make sure your quality. They're selling anything that's chewable is just mostly junk and sugar and garbage. You can look at the ingredients and look at the quality stuff. They're selling you all kinds of garbage that supposedly it's masquerading as a vitamin, which it's not. There's hardly any vitamin in it. We also love grapefruit seed extract, which is really good for upset stomachs.
And papaya seeds.
And then we load up on vitamins at the first sign of any illness, right? And really just hit that hard. Plus we do supplements for beef liver and other beef organs. You get, again, grass-fed, organic, and take those supplements. You can get a lot of nutrition.
You can buy at Walmart or on Amazon.
Yep.
So back to this idea really quick. So while we're traveling, or anytime, we're at home too, at the first sign of any of us having sniffles, a headache, whatever, upset stomach, anything, any sign of any illness at all, we pound the vitamins. So right away, I'm giving them tons of vitamin C, tons of vitamin D, tons of garlic, because garlic is antibacterial. Turmeric's great for anti-inflammatory. So I basically just flood their bodies with all of these vitamins, and that either prevents it from happening, or if they still get sick, it reduces the time they are sick. So that's an approach we take, along with overall healthy eating.
Yep.
That's our healthcare approach.
Hope this is helpful. You guys remember, it's a holistic approach. Just try to get every part of your whole life and being dialed in, and you can enjoy a healthy, long life. Love you guys. Thanks for listening. Reach upward.